But right now, we are getting into our second segment. This is on the freedom of movement, and I would like to introduce Lisa Kasowski, who is going to be introducing our main presenter. In case you only just came back to us, this is the Chicago hearing, and it's on www.chicagohearing.org. Our next introducer is Lisa Kasowski, who's an attorney who represents children in Cook County here in Illinois, represents children who have been abused and neglected. She grew up in the Reform Jewish tradition, attended Jewish summer camp, and has traveled to Israel a number of times. Ms. Kasowski is the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and she's an activist for human rights and for Palestinian-Israeli reconciliation. She's a board member of the Arab-Jewish Partnership for Peace and Justice in the Middle East, AJP, www.arabjewishpartnership.org.
Thank you very much. We got it? Yeah. Thank you very much, and thank you to AFSC for the honor of being able to speak today, and for the honor of sitting amongst the members of the panel, some of whom I'm very fortunate to call my friends, and some who I just had the honor of meeting today. Here in the United States, we consider our right to freedom of movement our right to move when and where we want to go, and we don't like things getting in our way when we want to move fast. We are irritated and indignant if our roads are not kept in good repair, and we get frustrated and angry by delays caused by the construction to repair them. If someone doesn't hit the gas when the light turns green, we honk our horns to get them to move. We don't like to wait in line, and if we have been kept in line too long, we're likely to want to speak with someone in charge and complain. Like other Americans, I value my freedom of movement, and it is such an integral part of my life that I don't give it any conscious thought. Take today, for instance. I estimated that it would take me about 30 minutes to drive from the north side here to Hyde Park, and I added an additional 15 minutes just in case of heavy traffic or difficulty finding parking. If I speed, I could get pulled over by the police, but if I drive according to the law, I don't have to worry that the police or the military would just randomly pull me over and delay me just on the basis of the color of my license plates. What route I take is my choice. I'm not forbidden to take certain roads because of the color of my license plates. If I choose to drive on a toll road, I know where the toll booths are and how many of them I will have to go through. In fact, for that reason, I have an I-Pass, so I don't have to be inconvenienced by stopping at a toll booth at all. I don't have to be concerned that one day there will be one toll booth on my way to the airport, and the next day there will be 5. I don't have to worry that some 18-year-old kid in a military uniform armed with an automatic weapon might make me wait for 2 hours and then just decide that today I can't go through the toll booth at all, and I have to turn around and go home. If, God forbid, I was injured in an accident, I expect that an ambulance will arrive within minutes and take me directly, without even stopping at red lights, to the nearest hospital. How long the ambulance would take or what hospital I would be taken to is not determined by where I live, my ethnicity, or the color of my license plates. I don't have to get any special permits from the government to get medical care, whether emergency or otherwise. Israel's restrictions on Palestinians' freedom of movement in occupied Palestine affect every aspect of their lives: economic, educational, social, and medical. The people in Gaza don't have checkpoints within Gaza, but they can't leave Gaza without a permit, which is a rare and unreliable exception. Gaza is an overcrowded outdoor prison, populated by 1.5 million political prisoners, half of them under the age of 18. The vast majority of them are innocent, but they are collectively punished without counsel, a trial, appeal, or parole. A young American journalist, Ashley Bates, is currently in Gaza as a Haaretz intern. She has a blog in which she describes the daily challenges for the people who live there. She described one man's freedom of movement, which is becoming more limited by the day. Abu Ala has a serious but treatable condition in his spine that is causing him to lose sensation in his limbs. He has been unsuccessful so far in obtaining a medical permit for the surgery he needs. If he doesn't have the surgery within a month, Abu Ala may be permanently paralyzed. Ashley Bates' blog also tells about 7-year-old Yusuf, who got a rock lodged in his eye while playing with a friend. The immediate medical care he needed to prevent permanent blindness was not available in Gaza, so his desperate mother carried her child, screaming from fear and pain, on a 15-minute crawl through a tunnel to Egypt, risking arrest by the Egyptians or certain death if the Israeli army decided to bomb that tunnel that day. In the West Bank, freedom of movement into Israel proper has been blocked by barrier fencing and walls as high as 23 feet. According to B'Tselem, the Israeli Human Rights Information Organization, there are 63 gates as of March 2009, only half of them available for Palestinians to use, and those gates are only open part of the day. Although Israel claims that these checkpoints and barriers are necessary for security reasons, there are hundreds of checkpoints and other obstructions to impede freedom of movement between the villages and towns within the West Bank. These checkpoints and stationary roadblocks make ordinary travel to visit family, get to work, shop, or see a doctor extremely difficult and sometimes impossible. As an American, I cannot even begin to imagine what it's like to experience having my freedom of movement restricted or completely cut off day in and day out. I cannot imagine what it would be like to be subject to the daily humiliations of the checkpoints and the fear that one day a delay of medical care could cost me my life or the life of someone I love. But this is the day-to-day reality for our next witness, Dr. Jed Isaac. Dr. Isaac lives and works in the same West Bank suburb of Bethlehem where he was born, called Beit Sahur. Dr. Isaac earned his Bachelor of Science from Cairo University, his Master's of Science from Rutgers, and his PhD from the University of East Anglia in the United Kingdom. After he earned his PhD, he returned to Bethlehem to serve as the Dean of the Science Faculty at Bethlehem University. Dr. Isaac is the Director General of the leading Palestinian Research Institute of Agriculture, the Environment, Land Use, and Water. The Applied Research Institute Jerusalem is dedicated to promoting applied research, technology, transfer, sustainable development, and self-reliance of the Palestinian people through greater control over their natural resources. Dr. Isaac has a long-time commitment to nonviolent resistance of Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. During the First Intifada in 1988, Palestinians suffered closures and severe economic sanctions. In order to foster self-sustenance, boost morale, and sustain the dignity of a free people, Dr. Isaac developed a project to provide agricultural supplies such as seeds, trees, fertilizer, etc. His project helped nearly 100,000 people, but his nonviolent grassroots resistance was treated as a crime by Israeli authorities, who arrested and jailed him for 6 months in 1989. Dr. Isaac continues his nonviolent resistance through his writings. He's been published approximately 87 times, as well as lectures and presentations in which he focuses on the environment, impact, and consequences of Israel's occupation of Palestinian lands. Dr. Isaac headed the Palestinian delegation for the Environmental Working Group in the multilateral talks, and he is an advisor to the Palestinian negotiating team on final status issues. And so it is our honor and pleasure to present Dr. Jed Isaac.
Thank you, Lisa, and I would like to thank the American Friends Service Committee for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. Usually, I like to carry my computer and do a PowerPoint presentation where I can show people things, but this is a public hearing. So I'll try to describe the situation regarding roadblocks without maps, and I hope I will succeed. First, I would like to let you imagine that the West Bank is a small triangle that's about 70 kilometers in one end, 70 miles, I have to correct from kilometers to miles all the time, and about 30 miles east to west. Gaza Strip is a very small piece of land where 1.5 million people live. According to the Oslo Agreement, these two areas should have two safe passages linking the two together, and there is a clause in the agreement that says that the integrity of the West Bank and Gaza will be maintained during and after permanent status and during interim agreements. Unfortunately, the safe passage never worked, and the safe passage became a control, another means of control, who moves from the West Bank to Gaza and vice versa. What you described, Lisa, 70 miles from Jenin to, let's say, the southern Hebron, you will be able to drive it. I know you drive fast. You will make it in 1 hour. Unfortunately, for a settler from Jenin to Hebron, he will still make it in 1 hour. But if it is a Palestinian, this 70 miles will have to go different routes and pass through different kind of barriers, so that 4 hours will be a very good timing to drive this distance. Well, what are these barriers and how are they created? Let me say that the simple barrier is a checkpoint where 20 years soldiers will be on the checkpoint, manning it and allowing people to pass through after they checking their documents. This is the first type. The second type is called partial checkpoints, where all of a sudden in the middle of the road, you will find a sign saying Mahsum, checkpoint. It is done arbitrarily, but on average, we have in the West Bank 78 regular checkpoints, and we have 17 flying checkpoints. They keep their location, but we almost can't tell when they will be established. Then there are roadblocks. Roadblocks where a road movement is restricted, and there are soldiers there that control the movement along that roadblocks. But there is another thing called earth mounds. Earth mounds is a system by which you want to control Chicago. Imagine, I think there are more than 20 or 30 roads that allow you to get into Chicago. And if Israel will put 20 roads on every Palestinian city, it's too much. They will need more manpower. So they will select 3 or 4 roads, and sometimes only 2 roads where checkpoints would be erected, and on the rest, they will put earth mounds. In other words, they will bring heaps of earth and put it in the middle of the street, so definitely you can't cross, even with a 4-wheel drive. Then we have observation towers, but that's not a problem. Then we have agricultural gates. These agricultural gates, we have 113 of them. They are located in the area between the segregation wall and the green line. Usually, they open in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. They open for kids to come and go to the rest of the West Bank or at the end of the day, and later in the evening. Now, only the inhabitants of these areas, which are called seam zones, are allowed to go to the West Bank and vice versa. The rest of the West Bank, you need a permit to get to the seam zone, and getting the permit is not an easy task. Now, during the agricultural season, they have created what's called a permit regime. In this land, which is about 10% of the West Bank area, people are given permits. But you have to, in order to get the permit, first of all, you have to have land ownership. You have to prove that you own the land. And since most of this land has been registered either during the British or during the Jordanian time in the north of the West Bank, so the title deed is in the name of somebody who at least 60 or 70 years of age. So they will be given a permit to go and plow the land or to cultivate a greenhouse, not their children or the grandchildren. And you are not allowed to use machinery. So if you have a greenhouse, sorry, you have to go and pick it yourself and bring the produce back to the gate and wait, first of all, for the gatekeeper to let you in and let you out. What does that mean, basically? It means that you cannot run a greenhouse, because if you want to pick tomatoes, you have to pick them very early in the morning in order to take them to the market before it's 7 o'clock. So if the army opens the gate at 8 o'clock, By the time you could pick up the tomatoes, by the time you get them there, it will be 10 o'clock and there will be no buyers in the market. As a result, most of the agricultural land that was in that area is totally abandoned. And this has become part of the matrix of control which prevents people from accessing this land. Another thing, what about if you have an olive orchard? The military order of the permit regime says that if you have 1 dunum of land, which is 1,000 square meters, you are given 4 hours for plowing, 4 hours for picking, and 4 hours for maintenance. And it will be spread over this. So if you have 10 dunums of land, you will be given equivalent dates. Again, what can you do and in such a short notice to cultivate the land? Many people have not even picked their olive trees, and we rely on the international solidarity movement during the picking season to come and help, because it's almost impossible to get the necessary permits to go and plow and go to your land. Another system is that the selection of where the agricultural gates are built, usually they are 2 to 3 kilometers away from the land. So imagine yourself, you have to go to your land, you have to walk, you are 70 years of age or 65 years of age. It's good for your health, but sometimes it will be very limiting. Well, so I can tell you, in the West Bank, there are about 546 different kinds of obstacles. And I think Israel knows that Palestinian record in the Guinness book is very low, is very poor. So they want us to be able to be prepared for a Guinness record of observation of obstacles and restrictions in the West Bank to get in there before the state even is established. There is nowhere in the West Bank where you can drive except in circles for more than 15 miles. Anything above 15 miles, you have to hit either a military checkpoint or a roadblock or something else. So it is very difficult to enjoy the luxury of the 21st century and mobility and sightseeing that you enjoy here, and even in Chicago, midtown Chicago. In Gaza, there are 5 gates to the Gaza prison. 2 are for humans, and the others are for freight. The one is Rafah and Eretz. Rafah, geographically speaking, there is no Israeli presence between Rafah and Egypt. But any movement from Rafah to Egypt has to get Israeli approval. Now, from Eretz, you enter into Israel from there to the West Bank. How often are these gates open? You don't know. When will they be closed? Nobody can know. I know people who go there, who went through the summer, and they were delayed for almost 3 months after the end of the summer vacation until they were able to get out of Gaza. You cannot plan, you cannot come to a conference like this one and ensure that you return after it, because you might return and it's closed and you have to wait in Al Arish or in Sinai until Israel will approve that the opening of that terminal. And in the freight section, the other 3 terminals, cars do not go, trucks do not go inside Gaza. There is a back-to-back system or door-to-door system where Israeli trucks can come and come to the Kisufim or any of the other checkpoints, and then Palestinian trucks, and they load the merchandise from one place to another. That is time-consuming, that is labor-intensive, and that is costly to the Palestinian people because they will bear the increased price differences. Now, what goes through that? That's another story. You say freedom of movement of goods and people. Well, there is no freedom of goods or people at that time. Until recently, pasta and macaroni was considered to be subversive, and you cannot get macaroni into Gaza. I don't know what can you do with macaroni, but please, if anybody can tell me, I would love that. Recently, they allowed wood, but they will not allow cement, they will not allow steel, they will not allow any of the construction needs. Paints are not allowed. The 1,700 homes that were destroyed in the last war in Gaza are still there. The rubble is still there. It cannot be built. And the UN was able, after 2 years of struggle, they were able to get some cement to able to rehabilitate the school. But according to the OCHA report of yesterday, what arrived there is 0.0025% of the actual needs for cement. Well, in some of the seam zones, the people are given special permits to enter the seam zone. But if you want to go and visit a seam zone, you are not allowed. If you are a doctor and you want to visit a patient, you are not allowed. So we advise the people in the seam zone not to get heart attacks in the middle of the night, or when it's not possible for doctors to get to you. And that is pretty dangerous. One other thing, even people are not allowed to attend the funerals of their relatives in the seam zone. Only the inhabitants of the seam zone are allowed to bury their dead. I believe that this permit regime and the seam zone is only serving two things: humiliation of Palestinians and a way to drive them out because those who cannot tolerate this, then they will have to leave. In Hebron, Hebron is divided into H1 and H2. H2, which is under Israeli control, there are 45,000 Palestinians and there are about 500 settlers. But the 500 settlers control the lives of the 45,000 Palestinians. All the Shuhada Street, there is free of cars. Only pedestrians can walk in, but settlers' car and settlers' hooligans are allowed to move freely and do anything they want in this area. Well, in the Oslo Agreement, the Israeli side said that, well, we want to promote confidence building so that, Israeli settlers, when they pass by, they will have their own road system. So let's put a clause that lateral roads will be constructed to avoid friction between settlers and Palestinians. And the Palestinian leadership thought that, this interim agreement, in 2 or 3 years, these roads will become ours. So they didn't mind. And the American administration was very generous. They paid $3.6 billion to construct these lateral roads, which now are inaccessible to the Palestinians. They are only for settlers and for the Israeli army. And these roads are acting like scissors, cutting the West Bank body into cantons that feed only the settlement program and not the Palestinian state program. The World Bank report says doubling the assistance to the Palestinians will cause only 7% increase in the GNP. But removing these obstacles in the West Bank will immediately cause a 25% increase in the GNP. So it's very clear what is needed. We don't need obstacles. Obstacles is a barrier to peace. These restrictions are also a barrier towards any sustainable development, and unless they are removed, And by the way, the roadmap says very clearly that all these roadblocks erected after 2000 should be removed. And it's clear, and it's a General Assembly decision, so it's also a roadmap and a court decision. But so far, every now and then we hear about small earth mounds here and there removed from one place to another, but we have not seen any real mobility. I would love to see us being able to drive like what you described in the Alice in the Wonderland, and I will be able to go to Jenin and come in the same day. And I hope this will happen through the efforts of the peacemakers and the peace activists like this group. Thank you very much.